Hey everybody and welcome back to Nightbringer's Watch. I am your host Falk, and tonight we will discuss the Kamigawa Neon Dynasty draft environment. Again, I need to shout out to my friend Krealos who helped me decide on which cards to choose. And before we started, here are some things you want to know before watching this video. First of all, the cards mentioned are good in general for a draft and are not fixed to an archetype. They may have a certain mechanic or keyword on them, but if I added such card, the effect of it is not bound to that mechanic or keyword. Furthermore, I won't recommend any rares or mythics. That's just because you cannot expect for such card. But with a certain probability, you can expect a certain common or even a certain uncommon to appear before you. So, I will focus on those two rarities. I will even talk about higher rarity stuff that you should not draft. And as last, I won't tell you how a draft works. But if you need to know, visit my Draftstars video for Crimson Vow, where I explained that matter. Link is in the info card and in the description down below. Now, let me start with the mechanics of Neon Dynasty. We got some cool looking mech suits in the set and they are all vehicles. Therefore, the first mechanic is Crew, which was first introduced in the Kaladesh block. And we even got some pilots with the ability to cruise some mechs as if their power was greater. The next mechanic is Reconfigure. The line where the super type and the type of the card is written on may look strange at first glimpse. But don't worry, I got you covered. Look at our example here, the thing that everyone wants to possess, the reality chip. It is a legendary artifact creature with the subtypes equipment jellyfish. First of all, it enters as an artifact creature with a super type legendary, so you can have only one. Then, as creature it has only the creature type jellyfish, since equipment is not a creature type. Now to reconfigure, you can activate it only as a sorcery. If you do, you equip it to a creature you control. After that is done, it is not a creature anymore until it becomes unattached. At this point, it becomes a legendary artifact with the subtype equipment. If by chance the equipped creature would be put into a graveyard or into exile, the equipment becomes unattached and it is once again a creature. You may also equip it for its reconfigure costs from one creature to another, just like a regular equipment. And don't forget, if you attack with an equipped creature, the equipment does not become tapped. So if you unattach it after the combat, you have an untapped creature on the battlefield ready to block any incoming blows from the other side. The next thing I want to talk about is more a keyword than a mechanic. Modified. A permanent counts as modified as long as it is equipped, enchanted or has any counters on it. In this Kamigawa set, many cards check for modified creatures like this Kodama. The following mechanics are returning mechanics from the original Kamigawa block. The first one is Channel. The card with this ability has a cost printed in the rules box. By paying the mana cost and discarding the card, you can activate the effect. For example, Bamboo Groove Archers. Destroy target creature with flying. Channel counts as an activated ability and you can activate it at any time. The last mechanic is Ninjutsu. If you attack and the creature is not blocked, you can activate the ninjutsu ability of a creature in your hand. To do so, you pay the mana cost and return the unblocked creature to your hand. After that, you put the creature card with the activated ninjutsu ability onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. You could say it replaces the creature. Here's some more tips to play with ninjutsu. The picking up a creature is a part of the cost of the ninjutsu ability. So you could pay them more than once before the first activation resolves. Therefore, you could pick up more than one creature. And if the ninja does not have first strike, but the creature you want to target has, you can first let the creature you want to pick up deal its first strike damage before you activate the ability. After that, the ninja will also deal combat damage. That is because the damage step is separated in two steps. The first strike damage step and the normal damage step. Pretty awesome, right? That's it for the mechanics in Neon Dynasty. And as last time, I want to mention the mechanics that did not return from previous Kamigawa sets. And since there are many and more this time, I'll just mention them. First one, we have Splice onto Arcane, then Bushido, Offering, Soul Shift, Epic and Sweep. And they dared not to print any Zubera in this set. Okay. Now to the archetypes. Once again, there are 10 two-color archetypes you could draft. These are blue-white vehicles, blue-black ninjas with ninjutsu, black-red artifact sacrifice, red-green modification, green-white enchantments, then black-white balance, black-green recursion, blue-green ramp, blue-red artifacts, and red-white samurai. And now to the main part of this video. My personal picks you should keep an eye out for if you want to draft something good. Once more, I will show you 5 cards of each color and some for artifact and multicolor. And before I start with white, here are some honorable mentions of cards which I think are pretty cool for some archetypes. Enthusiastic Mechanaut and Jukai Naturalist. And as you can see, there are several artifact creatures and enchantment creatures, and both reduce the cost of spells they are aligned to. So here are my picks you should keep an eye for, if you happen to be in those colors. To start off, let's get into white. Card number 1 is Moth Rider Patrol, a 1/1 flyer for only a white. It comes with a little upside that you can tap a creature for 3 and a white and tapping. High ability cost, but aggressive in the early game. Born to Drive is the next card. It is a pretty strong aura which buffs for every creature and vehicle you control. And did you see that it says enchant artifact or creature? That is especially there so you can equip all those vehicles and buff them as soon as they are crewed. This card also got a channel ability. For the same mana cost and discard, you create a colorless pilot creature which can crew for 3. The third white card is Go Shintai of Shared Purpose, an uncommon enchantment creature. Like before with the reconfigure cards, Rhine is not a creature subtype, but one for enchantments. For the mana value of 4, you get a 1/3 creature with vigilance and the ability to create more creatures at the end of your turn, for a pretty low cost. And if you control more shrines, you get even more creatures, which makes this ability absurd. As fourth, I want to show you Touch the Spirit Realm. This card is also an enchantment, and it exiles an artifact or a creature until it itself leaves the battlefield. It also has the channel ability with a blink effect. As last, I want to show you one of the strongest removals I've found in the set. Vanishing Slash destroys up to 1 artifact, enchantment or tapped creature, and that for only 2 white mana. But that alone is not everything. If you then happen to control an artifact and an enchantment, you also gain a 2/2 samurai token with vigilance. And possibilities are high that you have those, since there are artifact and enchantment creatures. Blue's turn now. First of all, Reality Anchor. This is an uncommon sorcery for 2 blue and blue. You also have to sacrifice an artifact or a creature as additional cost, but then it will let you search your library for any equipment or vehicle card in your deck and you can put it onto the battlefield. And yes, you can search those reconfigure cards. Next up is the Modern Age, which is not that spectacular, but for only 1 and a blue, you get a Saga enchantment, which lets you loot with the first 2 lore counters and turns into a flying creature with the third one. If it sticks, you can generate card advantage and then you get an invasive creature. And before I forget, all sagas in this set turn into creatures with the last lore counter. Frostbirth Thief is our first ninja on this list. It is a 3/2 creature for 2 and a blue. Or you ninjutsu it into play for only 1 and a blue. as fast as turn 2. But the reason why it is on this list is the ability to create treasure tokens whenever a ninja or a rogue deal combat damage to the opponent. And as mentioned before, it is a ninja. But it does not matter which ninja or which rogue deals the damage. The fourth card is Tamiyo's Completion. It is an aura for 3 and a blue, a common. But it is pretty busted. It has flash and it can target artifacts, creatures or even planeswalkers. And the target becomes tapped and loses all abilities, and it does not untap. You want to have that. We finish blue with an instant. Discover the Impossible lets you look at the top 5 cards of your library. You choose one of those cards and you put that into exile, face down. So you are not forced to show your opponent what you picked. Then, if it is an instant with mana value 2 or less, you may cast it without paying the mana cost. Otherwise, you put that card into your hand. You search the top 5 cards for a combo piece or a possible answer to your opponent's threat. The next one is black.
お前はもう死んでいる。何?
Wizards finally managed to print a legendary meme. And as a common instant for black, you are already dead is a pretty strong combat trick too. And it is a cantrip. And you can kill a creature that was dealt damage this turn, so it is also a strong removal. Want to grab some unique ramen? Dockside Chef got you covered. For only black, it has pretty good stats as a 1/2 creature. And for 1 and a black and sacrificing an artifact or creature, you draw a card. You could sacrifice it even to itself. Also, it is not restricted in terms of when or how often you can activate this ability. So as early as turn 2 you can have some more card advantage. Twisted Embrace is our next removal in black. It lets you destroy an opponent's creature or a planeswalker for a low cost of 2 black and black. But there it does not stop. Since it is an aura, you can buff one of your creatures. Or artifacts if they turn into creatures. Black is filled with great removals. Malicious Malfunction is another one. But this time it hits every creature. Yes, yours too. And they gain -2/-2 until end of turn. And you can cast its sorcery for 1 black and a black. Finally, we have Gravelighter, an awesome uncommon creature for 2 and a black. It is a flying 2/2 spirit, which gives you a card draw if any creature died this turn. Otherwise, it turns into removal, since each player has to sacrifice a creature. The only weakness of this card is that you can't target the one you don't want to see at the opponent's battlefield side. Red is, in my opinion, and the standalone cards, the weakest color in the set. The first card I chose is Voltage Surge. It is a shock, but only to a creature or a planeswalker. If you sacrifice an artifact in addition to the mana cost of red, you deal 4 damage instead of 2. On the other hand, we have Seismic Wave. This instant for 2 and a red deals 2 damage to any target. Also 1 damage to each non-artifact creature an opponent controls. That could be enough to kill more than 1 creature. And it says 1 damage to each creature. So if you hit a non-artifact creature with the 2 damage, it receives an additional damage, making it 3 in total. Next up is Twin Shot Sniper. This artifact creature for 3 in the red is a 2/3 Goblin Archer with Reach. That is an ability you find seldom on red. Also, it comes with a shock to any target and a channel ability with which it also shocks, but already for 1 in the red. Though the reinforced Ronin would not be that good in constructed, I think it is great in draft. Especially if you play first and you can play it on turn 1. At that point it is the strongest. But also, later those 2 damage for only a red could be game changing. And if you happen to stumble at the opponent's wall, you can for 1 and a red use its channel ability to draw a card. The channel ability is the reason why the picking it up at the end step is not that bad. The last red card is somewhat similar. It is also a creature for a red with haste. But this time it is an artifact and an equipment with reconfigure for also red. And the equipped creature gets +1/+1 in haste. Giving a creature haste for such a low cost is pretty awesome. Now to green, the best color as we all know. And I need to mention Tamiyo's safekeeping. In the past there had been often cards in green which gave a creature hexproof for 1 green mana. But this time it also gains indestructible until end of turn and you gain 2 life. Then even Omaramo Shinderu is not a problem. Master's Rebuke is the second green card I want to talk about. For 1 and a green, a creature you control deals its strength and damage to another target creature or planeswalker you don't control. It is a typical green removal, but it has several upsides. It is not a fight, so only your creature deals damage. It is an instant and also can target planeswalker. And green wants you to play big creatures. Big creatures like this little fellow, the Greater Tanuki. This small dog for 4 green in green is a 6/5 trampler, making sure you can reduce the opponent's life to 0. But the reason it is listed here is its flexibility with its channel ability to search your library for a basic land card. It puts it also onto the battlefield, tapped though. Roaring Earth is up next. It is an enchantment that lets you distribute a 1/1 counter on the target creature or vehicle you control, whenever a land hits your battlefield. That helps you grow new creatures. And that as early as turn 3 if you can place it the turn before for 1 and a green on your side. Also, if it is the late game and there are not many lands in your deck left, you can channel it to put some more +1/+1 counter onto a land you control to animate it. The last green card I chose is Orochi Mergekeeper. It is the generic mana dork that can produce a green mana for tapping. It is weak as a 1/1 and also costs 1 and green. But if it is modified, it taps for an additional green. And if you happen to draft green, you want to make sure to get as soon as possible to your big threats. Now, let us not forget that we still need to talk about colorless and multicolor cards. The first card is a neat flashback to a creature of the first Mirrodin block, which happened to be the block right before the original Kamigawa block. I am talking about Arcbound Worker. Iron Apprentice has a similar effect to the Worker's Modular 1. It also is a base 0/0 artifact creature that enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter, but instead on distributing the counters to artifact creatures, the restriction in Modular, Iron Apprentice can distribute its counters to any target creature you control. A colorless ramp is something you should not miss. Ecologist's Terrarium is an artifact for 2 mana that searches your library for a basic land card that you then put into your hand. Also, you can pay 2, tap and sacrifice it to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, even to an opponent's creature, wherever you want to do that. But only at any time you could cast a sorcery. Next artifact creature is also some kind of flashback to another well-known card. Circuit Mender has similarities to Solemn Simulacrum. It costs 1 less and has 1 more toughness points, but it doesn't ramp you into a basic land card like Solemn does, but it gives you instead 2 life. Great if your opponent is aggressive. Now to our first multicolored card. Colossal Sky Turtle is the embodiment of flexibility. For a total mana value of 7, it is a 6/5 flying creature that protects itself with Ward 2. Also, it has 2 channel modes. The first one is that you can return a card from a graveyard to your hand. Any card from your graveyard. And the second one is a boomerang effect. It lets you return target creature to its owner's hand. With that, you can clear the path by letting your opponent pick up one of their creatures or you save one of yours. The next one grants pure relaxation. Invigorating Hot Spring is another enchantment which lets you distribute +1/+1 counters, 1 per turn, 4 in total. But it also gives you modified creatures haste. Since it is able to modify your creatures by itself, This is pretty awesome. And the last card for my recommendations is Gloomshrieker. For 1 black and a green, you get a 2/1 creature with menace, and it brings back a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. If it would die, you exile it instead with bow. Okay, that would be all the cards I would recommend to draft. But remember that these are just recommendations. You should go for cards that fit into your theme. So, if you happen to draft one of the earlier mentioned archetypes, you should go for cards that support your strategy. But those cards talked about I think are good in general and would fit in every deck if you happen to be in those colors. Now, let us quickly talk about the one card from the upper rarity pool you should not draft. And the only one I found this time is the Kamigawa. This is a pretty awesome saga which transforms into an even better creature. But the effort to be able to play it is not worth the card. You have to be lucky to pick it in your first pack, so you can grab all the common dual lands, ramp and card draw you can get to be able to cast it. But you would have to build your whole deck around it, and that may leave you in a disadvantage. Better focus on a more promising direction. That's it for this episode, Draftstars, Neon Dynasty. So now it's your turn. Where do you agree? Where do you disagree? Let me know down in the comments. And if you prove me wrong with the Kamigawa, send me a pic over on Twitter @FalconWatch. Thank you all for watching, liking, sharing and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next videos. Bye!